The global economy has been blown into an enormous credit bubble during the 5.5 decades since dollars ceased to be backed by gold. If President Trump succeeds in bringing the U.S. trade deficit back into balance, that will cut off the main source of global liquidity that caused the global bubble. Should that occur, the bubble will pop, with consequences that could extend far beyond massive wealth destruction. This video will explain why. In my first book, The Dollar Crisis, I referred to the current post-Bretton Woods international monetary system as the dollar standard. There, I wrote, "The dollar standard is inherently flawed and increasingly unstable. Its collapse will be the most important economic event of the 21st century." The principal flaw in the dollar standard is that it lacks an automatic adjustment mechanism that prevents persistent trade imbalances between nations. The gold standard and the Bretton Woods system did have such an automatic adjustment mechanism. Consequently, under those international monetary systems, trade between nations tended to be in balance. The dollar standard evolved out of the ruins of the Bretton Woods system, which broke down in 1971. Soon thereafter, in the early 1980s, the United States began running very large trade and current account deficits with the rest of the world. It paid for those deficits in U.S. dollars. As the trade deficits grew, the dollars injected into the global economy as a result of those deficits became the primary source of global liquidity and of global economic growth. In other words, the U.S. current account deficit became the main driver of global economic growth. The theme of the dollar crisis was that this surge of dollars emanating from the U.S. current account deficit was destabilizing the global economy by blowing both the trade surplus countries, like Japan and China, and the main deficit country, the United States, into economic bubbles. Bubbles that would soon pop, resulting in a severe global recession. The book also noted that U.S. fiscal stimulus on a very large scale would be required to prevent the recession from becoming a new Great Depression. I wrote in the book's introduction, in short, the world economy is in a state of extreme disequilibrium and is at risk of plunging into the most severe downturn since the Great Depression. This chart shows the U.S. current account balance. As you can see, trade used to balance under the Bretton Woods system. Then, during the Reagan presidency, with its huge budget deficits, the U.S. current account deficit began to explode. Its mid-1980s peak was $161 billion in 1987. The Plaza Accord, which sharply devalued the dollar, brought the current account back down and then into a very small surplus in 1991. From there, it began to expand rapidly again, in part due to China's entry into the global economy. By 2002, it had grown to a record $456 billion. By this point, these deficits, by pumping so many dollars into the surplus countries, which then reinvested the dollars into dollar-denominated assets, had created a worldwide credit bubble that I described in The Dollar Crisis.